Actually.
Hi, I'm Brittany Ashley, your host of Breaking Norms Building Dreams, your guide through this transformative journey in both business and life. This is your place crafted for dreamers, doers, or anyone who has been told they can't. Get ready as we challenge those narratives together. You're tuning in live to the United Public Radio Network, airing on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are streaming on all the popular platforms every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me for a candid and thought-provoking conversation celebrating your unique journey because you are worth it.
Are you ready to explore the unknown? Dive into the world of the strange, mysterious, and unexplained with Eerie Expeditions magazine. Each issue is packed with spine-tingling tales, cutting-edge paranormal investigations, and exclusive insights into hauntings, cryptids, UFOs, and more. Whether you're a seasoned investigator or just love a good ghost story, Eerie Expeditions magazine has something for you. Join our growing community of truth seekers and adventure lovers. Subscribe today at EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com and unlock the secrets of the supernatural. Are you ready? That's EerieExpeditionsMagazine.com, where the...
What's out there? What creates the shadows in the corners or the creatures of the dark? Who are those on the other side? What do they have to say? This is the Gateway Podcast. This is not your normal style of paranormal talk radio. Brought to you live from United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM New Orleans.
Welcome to Negotiating Happiness, the show that helps you find happiness, success, and balance in your work and life. I'm Adriana Fiestra, your host for this journey into entrepreneurship and personal growth. We're broadcasting live on 107.7 and 105.3 FM in New Orleans as part of the United Public Radio Network. We explore the latest strategies, insights, and stories from successful entrepreneurs and experts. From managing stress to building a thriving business, we've got you covered.
The Power Agency is built for those who move like predators, decide like weapons, and execute like their life depends on it. You're either fully in, or you're invisible.
Oh, well, welcome everyone to the author's Quill. That's Beyond the Matrix. That last one you heard, that's kind of a new promo for Fred Smith's show, actually. We'll just say he's X a lot of things from the Marines and leave it at that. You can go catch a show though on Fridays. It comes on 12 to 2 my time. He's a local Cali boy, so out there it's 10 o'clock in the morning for anybody out in Cali wanting to listen to him early in the morning. He's a Friday morning show, so y'all can catch him. And matter of fact, he just came back from the UN. He was there last Saturday giving a speech. It's nice to see one of our hosts out at the UN, even though I'm not sure what the UN does anymore, but we'll leave that for another show. Welcome. I see James is down in. John's up there. John, what are you up to? Smiling.
Well, I'm looking forward to a great show today with James, and then following him with Bill Fawcett. So Memorial Weekend, we did this whole thing with Final Blackout, a story written by Edwin Hubbard in 1940, before World War II, but yet seemed to predict it. And so I'm anxious to get James's. I mean, he did an amazing blurb and review of the book, but I met originally James. He's been a guest a couple times on the podcast, and on that we did a whole thing on his series, which was just the Monroe Doctrine, which just like once I started, normally I read a book from an author because I do so many authors, but gosh darn him, I went through all like, what was it, 8 books in there or 9 books?
Yeah, we just finished the 9th one, actually, post-war, which is basically encompassing the whole thing and talking about that and laying the
I
groundwork
went through
actually
eight,
for
so
what
I
comes
haven't read
after.
number 9 yet. So shoot, now I got number 9 coming up.
Yeah.
So anyway, he hooked me, hook, line, and sinker, man. It's like, whoa, because it's so close to what you see in real life right now, seeing that stuff.
Part.
So anyway, so I'm all anxious about this interview coming up today.
Yeah, there's always off world if you get bored. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
It's scary.
Elon said it to Mars.
Reality,
So.
and it comes. Your books are like, what's happening? That's kind of. I mean, it's cool, but at the same point, it's kind of scary because you write these things as fictional stories. Just hey, let's explore this. Let's red cell an idea, but then you start seeing some of it coming to pass. You're like, huh, interesting.
It gets a little weird with me. So, well, I had just finished up Mission Earth. John had given to me the audiobook, and it is amazing to me because how old is that, John? 30 years old, 40 years old?
In the early 80s, like in 1981.
So the amount of political stuff in there that's relevant today is amazing.
Yeah.
It's literally amazing to see that much in there. And I've been noticing more and more authors, not all of them, but a lot of them have been hitting, how can I say this? The political environment in a much more solid way, or maybe that's not quite the way. They seem to be encapsulating what's going on before it's actually going on, which is nice. It's nice when your book comes out and this is kind of going on or semi going on, because we don't want the end of the world or anything like that. But it is kind of cool to see.
But his book starts in, is it 2027, James?
Yeah, ours starts in actually the end of 2024, and then rolls on through. And so it was capturing it right at the end of one administration and then rolling into the next administration.
Right.
So
right now we're in the middle of World War III with your series timeline.
Timeline wise, the Monroe Doctrine one, that started at the end of 2024, and then the new one that we have in the summer that'll come out, that one's going to start in 2033. So some of the opening stuff will be back maybe 2032, and then rolls into 2033, and it kicks off right there, May Day, basically. So,
got it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
So
doubt
that's the kind of stuff that you like, because you like near future science fiction, Joe. That's what he writes.
Yeah, and I always love some good near now science fiction.
Which is big for too, because we have the sci-fi that really started as a palate cleanse. I enjoy reading it, I just never wrote it, and created that Rise of the Republic series where I took the same thriller style. I just moved it to the timeline. The prologue opens in 2075, and then chapter 1 opens in 2090. So we're really close time-wise. We're not that far in the future. So you have a lot of tech that is in the works now, or would have been further refined by that point. And it's kind of fun to look at that, because what we see happening now, it's not that far off. Going out, the stuff out to Mars, the colonizing efforts, the tech's there. It's just baby steps to get to it, to implement it. You know what I mean?
Drox is fixing to go to Mars. So when little baby X moves to Mars, it is on, people. All those little satellites Elon's been putting up in space are going to turn around and kill us all.
Oh, I know it's not hard to do, though, because like you say, when I guess Mars and Earth every 2 years they come really close to each other. So that's your window, and so it's a unique idea. You put a bunch of these starships up into orbit, you fuel them up there, you load them up with a bunch of equipment and these Optimus robots. You send the crap ahead of time. It gets there, it lands, they start doing their basic stuff, and you have several iterations of that. And then by the time you actually get to a manned people going, you've had this operation going for 4, 6, or 8 years. And
at least
I
know he said he wants to have 50 going and coming all the time, because he said he did it. He wants to do it this way because everyone's always said Mars is a one-way trip. He said, I don't want it to be a one-way trip. He said, if people want to come back, they want to be able to come back. But for old people, I should say older people in their 50s and older, Mars is a good place. It'll extend your life by 30 or 40 years because, one, there's no more pressure on your joints from arthritis, from all that gravity pulling down. Also, your heart will work way less, so your blood pressure will come down. There's a lot of benefits for old people to live on Mars. Young people's not as much, but for old people, there's quite a few benefits. So, and of course, if Elon blows up the planet, it'll be a nice place to go live. I'm telling you, I look. I've seen the movie Moonraker. I know what's coming, y'all. I'm telling you. Little Drax, little X is going to turn into Drax or Damon or somebody. He's taking over. Oh, man, I'm worried. See, that's a good thing to write right there, James. Write it up.
Yeah, no, I
It's
got the
good.
next one will go after this. We have this next I think World War III type thriller that'll take place in Europe and the Pacific. Following that, that's really going to be more another series based a lot more on the machines, where that really is kind of headed, because that's that. In the sci-fi series, we talk about that AI war that took place in the 2040s, 50 range, and Monroe Doctrine. When that ends, that ends basically where they were on the cusp of releasing that. So the series that we'll be doing is that bridge series between the two. So that one will come out with this 25. So it's probably to come out about 2.5 more years. This one we'll start dropping that one. So
yeah. Now you were like 20 or 25 years in the military.
Not quite. So I did 10 years in the military, and I did another 7 more years supporting and working as a contractor, DOD, and then State Department, the two. And so spent some time interacting in that, and then Europe.
You have a lot of grist for your typewriter mill to write your stories.
Yeah, I've got a lot of experience, like actual experience doing some of these different things. So when I joined originally in 96, end of 96. I went to basic training on the Army side in January of 97. So, I mean, I remember pre 9/11 what it was like during that, that peace dividend army, so to speak. And our big thing we were dealing with was, Bosnia and Kosovo and that whole dynamic there. And then we had the whole GWAT. And then, in 2010s, you had the next evolution of things. And now we're dealing with, the rise of AI, autonomous weapons, China and Russia, and dealing with that whole avenue. So it is interesting because I've worked, I was enlisted. So, I mean, I worked in a self-propelled artillery unit where you're calling artillery rounds and you're doing that kind of stuff there. And then in Iraq, you're actually in a war. You're seeing what it's like and how that works, the logistics, being separated from your family, how random indirect fire is. Like artillery and rocket fire is really random. It's just, you're on your way to chow, and next thing you know, a couple of rounds come and they hit. Everyone has to scurry about, and you can get blown up just going to the bathroom. Yeah, that would happen, guys, or going to the chow hall or coming home. IEDs were a total nightmare to deal with too. And I see, like Ukraine, how it evolved from what we were dealing with to in Ukraine, where you have drones now taking essentially an IED instead of on the side of the road. You're slapping that bad boy on a drone like a video, like Call of Duty, and now you're just pointing them right in. So this whole evolution is just amazing to see. But as a writer, I've experienced it on the grunt side, where you're in an MRAP and it takes some gunfire. You can hear it pinging off there, so you can incorporate that feeling when you're writing it. And then as a contractor working at U.S. European Command, I've been there where you see these war plans and you understand like what goes into the logistics to deploy a brigade or a division to go up against the Suwalki Gap, and how do you keep that thing fighting, the supply lines, the logistics. It's really kind of fun to write some of that, to integrate that in, because readers enjoy some of those details. They like seeing how this works. Like understanding that and then telling the stories of those guys doing it, because they're not Navy SEALs, so they don't get that glamorization. But without them doing their job, nothing else happens. And so sometimes explaining that and helping to educate and entertain readers with that whole process, it's informative. They genuinely like to read about that and hear that. And a lot of their family, people are more likely to have served in those types of roles too than as a tier 1 operator. And so they can relate to that a lot more too.
And it'll make it easier too. If it ever makes it to a movie, it's easier for them to put that onto a screen, because you've kind of given them the feeling of what they need. Because if you've never served and you've never been in combat, you've never heard a bullet, or I was trying to explain to a friend of mine. I said, I said, when a bullet, I said it's really quiet when you come by. I said all you hear is like zzz, until they hit something. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, it's just like a little buzzing sound as it goes by. He said, you're kidding. I was like, no, it's just none of that blowing shit up or screaming, hollering. It's just, I said, it's just a little sound coming on by. And I said, and that's if it's coming out of a rifle barrel. If it's not even coming out of a rifle, it doesn't even make a sound. I said, it just comes over and then it hits you and you're dead. It's like,
You don't
it
even know
was
what
like, that's the problem. I mean, all of a sudden you're hit, they're traveling so fast, you're hit before you hear it. So, I mean,
yeah,
I tried to
one
explain
minute
that
you're
to
here,
him.
the next you're dead. And that's
I
just
said,
how fast things happen.
I told him, I said, if you hear the bullet, then you're okay. He said, what do you mean? I said, it means a bullet went past you. I said,
The one you
I said,
don't hear is you got to worry about. Same thing with like artillery rounds. It's the
yeah,
ones
that's
you
right.
don't hear that are a problem.
You're dead then, or at least messed up. But if you haven't experienced it, it's hard to get that across to people. It's if you look at my career, it's kind of funny because I was in the Navy for 9 years, but you can only see 3 of them as far as
Blacked out. Yeah, I always tell people,
the
like, you really
rest.
want to experience like what it sounds like to hear rounds zipping over your head, things like that. It's not necessarily the safest thing in the world. Okay, if you got friends who have land, things like that, just lay on the ground and you have
Yeah,
someone behind you and just wrap off a bunch of rounds, over top of you like that. You'll hear that. That'll give you that sensation, that feeling of what that sounds like, what that kind of feels like when that's happening. It's safe-ish.
it is.
Trust
Well,
your friends.
the first time I ever heard a bullet, I was 16. We were out at the river swimming, a bunch of us, and all of a sudden you started hearing this. Zzz, zzz. I'm like, what the hell? I didn't realize what it was, and then I seen one hit, and I'm like, oh shit. So everybody picks up their guns, starts shooting. We wanted to let the idiots uprange know, that we were down on the end of the road swimming, and they were on the top of the road, shooting at targets. And I'm like, God, and then they quit, of course, once they heard us start shooting. They come walking in and see if everybody was okay. But I mean, it was, and everybody who was with me was like, that's what that was. I said, yeah, that was a 30-yard 6 bullet going by your head. I said, you have any idea what that would have done to you if it would have hit you?
Oh, yeah, it mess you up. It was crazy. Like the drones. So think about it, right? You got these drones that are out there in Ukraine right now. They're testing these things. If you have a drone dog, quad pedal drone or a vehicle, something like that, and they have a rifle mounted on that thing with an optical lens, remote controlled, or if it's autonomous like that, these things are going to be able to fire so precise because they're not having to deal with like your hand or your arm shaking, you breathe wrong, you wrong trigger pulls, things like that. It's going to be very, very precise. So you're going to have weapons out there that are going to be just a lot of one shot, one kill type situations. And that's going to be quite terrifying when you're out there because it's not some dude with a machine gun just spraying, bullets to keep everyone down. You can maneuver around.
You
It's
say that.
like a sniper.
Yeah, just today, I was for the next show. I was looking at this thing. It's called the Buzz Drone. Some bitch is only this big. It's about this big around. It's like shaped like a cone on each end. It's got 4 little props, and I mean this thing is fast. And you know what? It carries the whole top of it as an explosive charge, a highly packed explosive charge, enough to kill 8 or 10 people in a 50 feet radius. I'm thinking, what the? So I mean, we can build these by the tens of thousands. I don't even know. I'm kind of with you. I don't even know. So because of what you're saying, you're writing about. I'm kind of with you. I don't know if there's going to be really the next really big war. I don't know how many soldiers will be on the battlefield. I mean, if it happens right now, they will be. But in 2033 or later, I don't know if there's going to be any soldiers on, except maybe with a remote control.
You still got to take ground. I mean, at the end of the day, you're seeing that right now, even with like Russia and Ukraine. No matter how many drones saturate the area, you still have to have a dude and his rifle's got to go there and actually take the ground and hold it. And so, yeah, they can saturate some of this stuff up, but for every weapon they come up with, there's a counter to it. So there's this Leonidas device by Epirus. They've got this really cool mobile microwave system now where they can mount this thing onto the back of a Striker or a JLTV, and if there's drone swarms coming, they just point this microwave in that direction and boom, like just dozens will just literally fall out of the sky. They did it really cool. It's a YouTube video. You can look it up. They have a demonstration video where literally they just dropped, half a dozen drones just out of the sky.
And what'll happen with that is let me make sure I'm not saying something that's so classified. Anyway, on the F-14s, I won't talk about the F-18s because they're still in operation. But on F-14s, we used to install with little reflectors in case they happen to get caught in a nuclear strike, so the EMP wouldn't knock the equipment out. So they'll work the same way for a microwave. It won't affect their electronics at all.
Hard
now, Now, people, when we talking about microwaves, it's all about settings. So it may protect the electronics, but the pilot himself may not be protected from the microwave. And if it's a high intensity microwave, he's dead. It'll cook him. It'll cook him in his seat. It won't even be nothing to it. I've worked. One of the things I did on the Nimitz was installing the microwave systems in the conning tower, and I watched a guy, an idiot, pull off the side of the panel before he shut it down. It killed him within 8 seconds. It basically cooked him from the inside in about 8 seconds. But it was a high intensity radar. This wasn't something that would be in like your microwave. Just a serious radar for serious range.
Yeah,
And
those
he just forgot. It was a mistake. I mean, it was a mistake that cost him his life. And he made another mistake because when we take the panels off, we always take them off from the side and turn them so that the panels in. That way, if there is still something operational, it'll hit whatever's over there. And you'll usually notice it'll cook a chair or make the carpet burn or something, and you'll know it's still on. But I always triple check because it's those things. It's unreasonably dangerous. But that's what you're saying. For every countermeasure, there's going to be another countermeasure. It's crazy the way I was looking at the new F-50 B-52's new countermeasures they're installing on Air Force One. These things are beastified. Ain't no jet getting close to it. I was like, okay. And then, of course, if you got an F-22 or an F-35 following, there's no way you're getting around it. And have you seen the new drones for the F-35s? So the Navy got the new drones that fly parallel with them.
Yeah, they have the CCA, the Combat Collaborative Aircraft stuff. So that it's really neat. It's Anduril Industries. If you haven't looked up Anduril Industries, they have got the most amazing stuff there. So Fury is their that's their autonomous fighter, basically. So it'll fly. I believe it's able to carry. Well, they say it can carry 2 air-to-air missiles. It'll probably carry more, maybe. But it's not stealth. But it's basically you have an F-35 or the F-22, the newer aircraft, the 47, and you'll have essentially a handful of these things flying with it. And so it's shotgunning these things out front, and basically. Anytime you go out there, you got to do suppression of air defense, the SEAD or DEED, so it's either suppression or destruction of air defense. Those things will go out there to essentially kind of do that. And some can be configured for electronic warfare to just jam the heck out of them. And then the others will be, set up with those AMRAAMs to just, fire and take
straight out of sci-fi. I mean,
if you go back to those things, that's okay. You can lose those and not lose an F-35 or
which is way more expensive. Yeah, well, you get the pilots and the planes. So it's way more expensive to lose an F-35. But I was looking at the new ones for the Navy. They're badass. They carry 4. Two of the new ones are coming out with. They're going to be stealth as well. But really and truly, when you listen to the Navy commander talking about it, he was talking about more along the lines of fighter coverage for the fighter, air superiority, jamming electronics, and of course they can always sacrifice themselves to save the F-35. So it's a whole host. And then I seen the new autonomous SR-72. So I thought it was going to be a drone. It's not going to be a drone. It's going to fly itself at somewhere around Mach 9. They were saying Mach 6 to Mach 9. I mean, even a hypersonic missile's not going to catch it.
Yeah, see, who's got that engine? I don't think it's a Boeing, but it's a dual stage engine. So the way I was told how it works is the flaps basically control. So in the intake, the lower end is basically what's going to get you from 0 to Mach 3. And then once you're up there, it changes the engine, and then it switches into that the next level that'll take you up to Mach 6.
It's not a ram scoop; it's the other one. Damn it! We were just talking about this last night because they got scram. That's what it is. Because they got the ram scoops out, which will get you to Mach 6 or 7. But the problem with ram scoops is you can't use them to take off with.
No, you can't. And the other issue too, though, is it's not even speed. They can get the aircraft and stuff up to speed. The real problem is materials. So until they make some changes in material science for like the wings, the airframe, the actual aircraft itself, the problem is you're going so fast that the materials on the aircraft actually start to compromise. They melt and fall apart. So I like the black, SR-71, when it would fly, it would actually stretch in flight because of the heat, and then it would, shrink back down. So when they are taking off, they leak oil, they leak fuel like a sieve.
Oh, they leak fuel, hydraulic fluid.
Yeah.
If you
And
ever
they
get
put
a
it up
chance to
there,
see
they
one
stretch out,
parked,
and then they can refuel up, and it's a
I
mess.
went to go visit a friend of mine in San Antonio at the B-52 base, and which is really weird how crazy they guard these things. They got a yellow and a red line. The yellow line you can walk up to. If you cross it, you're going to take you to jail. If you cross the red line, they have orders to shoot you. They don't care who you are. Unless you got a badge on your chest, you die. I was like, but anyway, I was over there visiting a friend of mine because we were going to go out in Texas partying. This SR-71 comes by. Its nose cone is just pulsing red. So, one of my things in the Navy was advanced avionics, advanced electronics. So I'm looking at this thing and going, well, that's way faster than Mach 3. It ain't going to glow red at Mach 3. I'm thinking Mach 5, Mach 6. It was way faster than what we were told. And I mean, it blew by it was like the whole tarmac just shook as this thing came by. And then I remember I was at one of the NASA bases and I was on a special assignment for electronics. And I'm sitting there looking at this thing and I'm watching. I'm talking to the pilot. I'm saying, you're going to fly this piece of crap? Look at it, it's leaking out. I mean, look, it seriously was leaking everywhere. I mean, it was puddles and puddles. He said, oh, we put extra in when we get up there. He said, it leaks so bad on the ground that we have to refuel when we get it up in the sky. I'm like, great. He said, yeah, they'll refuel us probably within about 30 minutes of getting up. I'm like, wow. He said, but once it gets up there, all of this stops. He said it flies like a beast. I'm like, well, I don't doubt it flies like a beast. But it's
like,
crazy.
Even with carrier operations, right? That's a problem they have right now with the fighters is, the F-35s. You lose your stealth if you take anything outside, if you carry weapons outside. But the problem is when you have aircraft taking off and they've got their full loadouts, so F-18s, things like that, you run into a fuel problem. And so because you're going to burn a ton of your fuel just getting airborne, so you have to have tankers top off, right away. That's why, like during
because they won't let the F-35s carry fuel tanks. They'll let the F-18s.
No, if you lose your stealth, and so that's why they have a autonomous mid-air refueler that they're basically testing on the carriers now, so that way the F-35s get up, then these refuelers go up, and they can fuel them up there, so they can extend their range out and get these things out. Because the problem is, Pacific is a big place. Tyranny of distance is huge, and if you have hypersonic missiles and ballistic missiles that can fire at the carrier group 1,000, 2,000 miles away, well, that negates the aircraft carrier, because unless its fighter wing can project out further than its current capacity, you can't really use this thing unless you're willing to risk that thing getting sunk. And you've got 5,000
that's the thing. So you've got 100 and something jets up there. Only about 80 or maybe even 70 of them are actually fighters. And you're going to have 35 or 40 of them out and about. And you don't know how much you've got extended out, and you don't know what kind of backup you're going to have for them. So really, you are limited to the speed of that jet and how fast you can get back to that carrier and how much fuel it's carrying. So really and truly, it's always half the fuel of the jet, half the distance of the jet by its fuel. And if you've gotten it, you can extend them, like you were just saying, but there is a spot where there's the point of no return, and that ship does become vulnerable. Now, granted, it does have a carrier group with it, and it will have a strike force, and the destroyers are ordered, well, not the destroyers, the frigates are ordered to get in front of any missile coming. If they can't knock it down, they're supposed to pull up in front of it and let it hit them. And also,
we'll see if that actually works.
No, they did it in World War. No, they wouldn't. They did it in World War II several times. But today the frigates are different. Everything is stealth. The Navy's all stealthed out. I don't know how well that's going to work in today's Navy. And if you haven't noticed, a lot of the new ships are only high.
John, did you know? Did you know? Oh, I don't remember when L. Ron Hubbard died. Did you actually meet him or
No. He's as close as I've got to meet him. This is John.
I was going to say, like, was he? Because you're right. Because like the blackout was interesting because it was predictive in a lot of the things that kind of happened. And one of the questions I was going to ask is, was he a really big study of history of prior?
He was in the Navy.
He did study.
He did that after World War II. I'm talking before World War II, because that's when he wrote this. He had apparently a pretty good eye of kind of seeing on the horizon
he did all that traveling around the world. I mean, he was
traveling, but his father also was career Navy. So that's where he got his stuff there. And his mother was a rarity at that time period where she was very educated and herself trained in school and college. So he was reading by the age of 2 or 3. So he was voracious reader. So he studied a lot of stuff. And his father, obviously, because he was Navy, gave him a lot of stuff. So he was traveling all over. He was even when he was like 16 or so, he was traveling because his father was stationed in Guam. He took a boat trip there and got on there. Just, he basically got pissed off at the school teacher because the school teacher was in Montana. He was like a bully teacher, and he was throwing chalk at this, I guess it was either a girl or a boy, that was just like, it was unfair because he said something wrong and threw a piece of chalk. So he just got upset. He picked up the teacher, threw him in the trash can, and walked out. and then went to he traveled to San Diego there and boarded a ship and took that to Guam. And his dad said, "What are you doing here? Get back." So he said,
"How did you get here?"
Yeah, but he traveled by ship, and so he was just very much Navy. He traveled. He was a supercargo on a ship there in China, along the China coast. He just loved that stuff. In fact, it wasn't the final proposal that created the U.S. Air Force, but when he was there, it was the Army Air Corps.
Yeah.
He had written a proposal that he gave to a senator in I think it was Nevada, to propose to create an Air Force. Said, look at, because he saw what was happening to Germany in Europe and UK. Said, if we don't get control of the skies, we will be defeated by Germany. And so he did a whole proposal, and it was like either 1 or 2 iterations later that actually made it through Congress that created the Air Force. But he's a very strong proponent of a strong military. But he also had his issues, which you saw in Final Blackout, with the top brass.
Yeah.
So
very disconnected.
The lieutenant very disconnected. And so that the lieutenant, which I think was pretty iconic as a character, because he was no name. He was just like the lieutenant. So it applied to anybody that had those characteristics. That he led what we refer to as the unkillables. But he was totally thinking how to keep my troop, my men alive.
Yeah.
And even when there was the coup that was attempted back at headquarters, and they tried to, they recalled him and they separated him. His troops. No, he's our leader. You can't take us away. And it just, to me, it resonated with like really true leadership, and that's why I was really excited about doing this thing with Joe on this episode, and what you had to say as well on your review of the book, because it is about leadership and what it's with some of the craziness that's happening in America today with people that feel like, well, I'm owed this, and this is just something that I don't need to love it or leave it. I deserve it. I'm and it's not, it's not what it is. And so what he communicates in the value of what a true leader is, it really validates what we celebrate this Memorial Weekend. And people, who don't have that reality, maybe what we're talking about right now, and definitely people reading that book can get that, a reality of what we are celebrating and the importance of having a dedicated army or military, and what people are doing to actually ensure that we do have the ability to even have a country where you can say something bad about your country and not be locked up. There aren't other countries.
It's a volunteer force. We're not a conscript draft army.
Right.
We're volunteers by choice to do this profession, to do this job. And it has, there's good things and there's negative things. I'm of the GWAT generation that was the first generation that fought a long-standing war without a draft. And I can tell you that sucked, because it did put, unfortunately, way too much strain on the service and those who are in. And I think as a country, we are paying consequences for that, because we put too much onus on too few, instead of kind of spreading that out But the concept of a professional force is far better in the way to go. I do kind of wonder that perhaps in a future conflict, though, that maybe we would be better served, however, if we did integrate in some sort of draft into the process, just from the purpose of that. It wasn't right that many of us would go repeatedly, go back,
But,
you come
they
back
actually
here,
they
and you're
broke the
going
rules.
again.
But they broke the rules in Desert Storm and all of those and all that stuff in the Middle East. So I was always told, since you volunteer, because I joined the service as a volunteer, I wasn't drafted, and I was always told, okay, 2 terms, you can volunteer for a third. After that, no, you're out. You can't go back. You're out. Get out. Go home. Don't come back. Matter of times, they even discharged you from the service. For some reason, they didn't do this. Because I was talking to a lot of friends. I had friends over there who went 5 times.
Oh
I
yeah,
was like,
or more sometimes. Yeah,
yeah, and well, you know what? A lot of the people, I don't want to get into
yeah,
too much,
yeah.
but a
It
lot of
was a
people,
long war. Iraq was
yeah, well,
7 years. Afghanistan, 19 years and
yeah,
10 months. 19
19
years and 11
years.
months. These
And there
weren't
was,
short wars.
yeah, a lot of security people. I met 2 of them, which are hosting this network, will tell you that they spent sometimes 8, 9 years just there.
Yeah.
They weren't even coming home. They get sent to Europe for a break. And the ones that married, they'd fly their families in Europe. They were still not coming back to the States. Though I was
Or you
like,
get stationed in Europe, you're stationed there for 3 years.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you
yeah,
end up
they get
having
stationed
18
everywhere.
months in Iraq or 18 months in Afghanistan. And part of the
My
problem is,
wife was
you're like when we went, we had our train up, then we were gone for 6 months for training, then we were gone for a freaking year, and we came home, and we were already going to be rotating back within 9 months
yeah.
of coming home, and we'd just been gone for 18 months. And so that's tough to do that repeatedly over and over.
They were doing it. They wanted. It was like they were trying to max. And I understand using trained people, but you know what? Okay, take half the trained people, send them back with new people, give the other break. An
But
extended
that was the
vacation.
problem. The force is only, I think I think the Army got up to 520,000 at the time. So
Yeah,
when you have 120, 130,000 in Iraq, you're talking like 1 in 5 are over there. And then you still had, another 40, 50,000 in Afghanistan at the time. So we were forward deployed. You're looking at essentially 1 in 4 people were deployed. And so that's what's there. Another 1 in 4 is in the train up cycle to deploy. So you have essentially half of the military either deployed or trained to deploy, and that leaves you the other half for training and recouping, whatever. If we were going to do something like that, repeat it again, honestly, the better way to do it would literally be to
never
double
understood
the
it either
force,
because
or you need
we.
to draft.
I don't know why we weren't taking more troops out of Europe for this because we had a lot of troops stationed. We still have a lot of troops stationed in Europe. It would have been easier to take some of those troops, well-trained troops, bring them to Afghanistan, replace them with American troops, let them train in Europe like a lot of them did. But they weren't even interested in that. They were like, no, it's not how we're going to
You
do
bring
it.
them back and train them or something.
I mean, because you're always going to have new people coming in. You're always going to have new. So if you'd have took like some of the people deployed in Germany and brought them into the Afghanistan conflict instead of just taking the Afghan people, sending them back and forth, it would have gave the people more experience, in Europe. But I remember one of the generals was talking. He said, "Well, no, we don't want to do that. It confuses the soldier because it's 2 different theaters." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, one's a grassy theater, one's a desert theater." I said, "I'm thinking most normal people can figure the difference between grass and sand." But still, I mean, I watched us crash 2 helicopters because somebody didn't know to cover the breather. So, I watched us get tanks stuck in because we weren't cleaning the filters. Sometimes I just wonder who's running our military. That's all. It's just you got good people, you got dumb people.
Yeah, I don't know.
But one thing too is like back in, like I missed the draft by about a month when I was, that was Vietnam. But see the problem there too, and people looking at it, it's so divisive today. It's so like polarized. It's almost like nothing compared to what it was in the late 60s.
Yeah, I've heard that.
A polarized nation, fighting a war that was not worth fighting at all, in that whole
no business being there.
It was crazy. And so you had this you had this group called Crosby, Stills and Nash, and they had this song that was very popular. They don't get played anymore because they were like the counterculture, but there's a song called Ohio. And that's where Nixon had sent in the National Guard and killed four of the students that were protesting there. It was so volatile then, but you didn't have the social media. You didn't have, that stuff going on back then. But it was really amazing there. Just the counterculture, the music that was going on, that was the protest. A lot of the pop music at the time was total protest to what was happening. And so you really saw a country divided back then for sure. And Nixon was like, he was definitely Mr. Bad Hat. Even, even Owen Hubbard wrote some stuff about him, what, his blacklist that he would keep to on people that he wanted to
he did stuff, but he ended the war and he had the first meeting in space with the Russians, and there's quite a few things Nixon did was actually good. It's just he was an idiot and got caught.
It was a war they didn't want to win, and that's the crux of it.
Yeah.
It's like
it is true.
We have an incredible military force. Our problem is we're not allowed to win. And that's what drives us nuts, because we didn't lose a single battle in Iraq or Afghanistan, but we can't exactly say we walked away winners, at least not in Afghanistan. Iraq,
I agree with that. Iraq we can, but Afghanistan Afghanistan turned into Vietnam is what Afghanistan did.
But it didn't have to,
No, it didn't.
The whole thing is there was an agreement in place. There were rules and sets that had to be followed through. And when that should have happened, and it didn't. When we cut off the contractor support to the Afghan army in that spring of 2022 or 21, that killed it. That ended the whole thing, because now you have an army that's been trained to fight like an Americans, air support and all this jazz, right? And you ended the contract support. So now you took away all of the mechanics who work the helicopters and the aircraft and the logistics and support that. So you have these highly trained Afghan commandos who could have fought and kept that thing going, and you just kneecapped them. You took out all their support. And how are they going to fight? And then when the Taliban kept breaking all the different the agreements, you weren't enforcing it. So it sucked.
It was a mess. Well, we had one regime that said, okay, so, Obama tried, he basically ended Iraq. He said stuff about Afghanistan, but there was no way he could do it. Trump came in, started doing some stuff, said, all right, we're going to end this, but Trump didn't win. Biden came in, and then I'm not exactly sure if Biden even knew what was going on. And I don't want to hate on the guy, but I wonder sometimes if he knew what was going on over it, especially after that horrible withdrawal.
I don't think he did, man. I think it was surrounded by people who are essentially ruling by proxy and auto pen.
Yeah, no, and if he would have paid attention to the deal Trump had cut, they would have got out of Afghanistan without any real problems. But they didn't, and you're right. They just kneecapped him. They said, well, you know what? Well, we did the same thing in Vietnam. We just left.
Yes. When we left, even in Vietnam, we left with guarantees that we would continue to provide logistics, munitions, all kinds of different support to help them sustain that. And then Congress kneecapped them and cut them off, and that made it easy for them to fall. And it just sucks that we treated it and did it that way, because we have historical examples of this happening. We know better. We know what not to do and what should be done going forward. We just have to have the people who are willing to do it. I don't know if you saw recently, so Secretary Hegseth has announced that they're going to do a review of this Afghan withdrawal, this whole crap, and actually study it. And one of the people that he put in charge of doing this, I'm really excited about this, is that Marine Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller. He's the only officer. He's a battalion commander. He was the only officer who's willing to throw his rank on the table and say, this is BS. This is ridiculous. You guys know this is wrong. Someone needs to stand up and say something about it. And he got fired that day for doing that and putting the stockade and eventually drummed out of the Corps. That's the guy who's now going to be leading this investigation, and rightly so, because we need someone who can hold these people accountable, because we can't do this to another generation of veterans, to another generation of Americans. We cannot repeat this again.
I
We
agree.
owe
Man.
it to
We
the
can't
country.
keep sacrificing our citizens for whatever.
Now, one thing I wanted to be able to throw in here, because one of the things that I did here when I sent around that book for you to read, Joe, and for you, James, is we've got the that poster that we wanted. What we've got is Frank Frazetta painted the Lieutenant, which is the current cover for Final Blackout. So, Joe, I sent you the image, and I told you we made a thing here. So I've got, between this hour and next hour, we got 10 posters that we will mail to anybody in the continental U.S. And then anybody else that, Joe, you want to work out that we give it to, we can also send them a PDF of it. It's expensive.
You know what I should have done? I put it up. We were giving them away on all of the Facebook and Rumble pages, but I should have added your email. So when we get done today, I'll do it again, and I'll make sure your email. So I don't know why I didn't put the damn email on. I was just in a hurry. So I posted we were giving them away on the show. Well, I don't know, like 10 Facebook pages and 2 or 3 Rumble pages, and
can we put the image up on this show right now so people can see?
I think I can. Let me go check it. I got it somewhere. I know I had it out a little while ago. Let's see.
Yeah,
because
you made so James, you sent me just an amazing blurb about this. Do you remember what you said there, so that people can hear what you said about the book?
Let me go back and pull it back up here again. I liked it because it was good writing. Should foreshadow and tell things and put you in the moment with the characters and be able to do that. And that was one of the things I liked about that when I was reading that. Those are some of the things that I liked about it. See, where did I have that?
Yeah, we've got here. I'll just read it because I pulled it up here.
Quite a fast I can.
Okay, good. Yeah. So long before the road or Station 11, Hubbard crafted the definitive post-apocalyptic journey in Final Blackout. What elevates this classic beyond its contemporaries is not just its unflinching vision of collapse, but its powerful argument for what makes rebuilding worthwhile. And then you said it's a timeless study of leadership in crisis. You said there are some books that age well, others that don't. Final Blackout, written in 1940, is one of those rare books that stands the test of time for all the right reasons, like Robert Heinlein's Strange in a Strange Land, Joe Haldeman's The Forever War, and John Scalzi's Old Man's War. Hubbard's incredible storytelling ability is on full display as he manages to capture the details and nuances of war, conflict, and the competition of competing ideas. His unique way of storytelling, of painting a picture that I can visually see, taste, and smell, is what sets him apart as one of the literary titans of the 20th century and an inspiration to future authors. As we follow the lieutenant, the story's main character, the metallic taste of contaminated rain as he drinks between battles, we feel the silence of empty cities as he patrols through them with his soldiers while sharing the weight of perpetual vigilance. The nameless lieutenant emerges as a character of remarkable depth through action rather than exposition. When he discovers Britain's corrupt military junta and establishes a new order, readers witness his philosophy through decisions, not speeches. His tactical brilliance, coupled with unwavering principles, offers a character study in leadership that resonates across generations. What distinguishes this work is Hubbard's ability to maintain narrative tension without sacrificing deeper reflections. The lieutenant's rejection of ideological extremes for practical governance presents a vision of leadership based on competence rather than dogma, on earned respect rather than fear. It's a different way of storytelling, and one I appreciate. In an era of renewed global tensions and extreme polarization, I feel drawn to masterpieces of the past, a reminder that the true measure of leadership lies not in grand ideologies, but in the practical preservation of humanity and what makes us human under the most challenging of circumstances. It's a great read, one of the few I recommend. It was an awesome review what you gave there, but and that's the image that Frank Frazetta painted for the lieutenant. That's actually a self-portrait too of Frank Frazetta. But we have this we're doing 10 giveaways on this. So I'm not sure how many you've already done, Joe, on this, But
Well, we're waiting to see. I'm gonna make sure before I leave, I got an email that you can use other than your personal one. I don't want to send everybody to your personal one. And and he'd come up. I don't have Bill's email. I thought I had his email, but I don't have it.
It was neat how he was able to craft the characters and kind of do that because, like in John Scalzi's Old Man's War, one of the things I liked about his main character is character was always leading from the front. He was always willing to be the example, to step forward, to be the guy to do the dirty deeds, to be there with his soldiers in the action like that. And that was the same thing that was demonstrated with the lieutenant, with this character. This character was always willing to be there with his soldiers and people he was leading. When you read like Band of Brothers, when Ambrose wrote that, and you come across a character with Dick Winters and dealing in when they were in England, and you got Sobel, Captain Sobel, and the dynamics between those two, right? And there was that part about the court martial, and Sobel's like, come on, Dick, just take the paperwork and move on. And he's like, no, I'll go ahead and stand for trial for this because it's about the principle of the thing. It's about what you're doing or what you're proposing was wrong, and I'm standing on principle, and I'm going to take this to the next level. And it got to the, eventually to their battalion commander who's like, look, dude, this is ridiculous BS. You're going to squash this thing because I'm not going to have all my NCOs and his company just up and quit because they don't like your leadership, And he ended up it forced him out. Sobel made the wrong call, and he ended up getting forced out. And Winters moves up to number 2, and then eventually takes over. When they land on D-Day. That's a good contrast because not a lot of writers they don't always do that. And it was neat to be able to see. You've got Hubbard does that. You had Heinlein does that with his character, like say in Starship Troopers and some of the others. And then Scalzi replicates that. It's one of the things I try to do with some of our characters as well, is that whole burden of command requires you to lead and be the guy in the trenches with your people, make those tough calls, and be able to throw your rank on the table when it needs to be done, because you can't sacrifice these people. These are lives. Every one of them represents a life and a family. And
I can tell you, I ain't gonna fight and die for an idiot. Now, somebody who's willing to throw their life on the line while we're out there or come save your ass, yeah, I'll fight for them. But when I was in the service, it was weird because the captain of Nimitz was a cool guy, and you could tell. And the number one, you could tell he would throw. But a lot of them freaking pilots we work with, you're on your own. But and they would tell you that too. You're on your own. I was like, you're kidding me, right? I said, well, I hope you never become my freaking commander.
Yeah.
And
the whole phrase we are all alone and there's nobody coming to save us is relatively
one thing too also about this thing with the Final Black, it's we also have it on special right now. Amazon put it on special for only $2.99. And
man,
Kindle countdown deal. Yeah, those are good.
John
I'll send it to you right now. I'll upload it right now, Joe, so you can.
He treats me wrong now. I feel like a stepchild.
You guys should look at it like a dramatization.
What are you mumbling about?
I said I feel like a stepchild. What is it, Lily?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys do your own audio.
I
don't know if you guys produce your own audio yourselves or whatnot.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do.
They're getting to a point now with some of the different AI. There's tools that you can use. You could create some pretty good dramatization of audiobooks and really like add some of the layers in. I'd love to do that with one of our audiobooks at some point.
I gotta tell you, I'm a big audiobook fan. I'm not gonna even lie about it. I tell people all the time, especially because I host 5 different shows in the network, and I tell them, I said, if you want me to really read you the book, send it to me in an audiobook, or send it in a form where I can throw it through one of my programs and listen to it, because it's much easier. I mean, like when I'm done later tonight and I'm doing archives and stuff like that, I can listen. It doesn't bother me. I can multitask. It doesn't bother me. I can do whatever I'm doing and listen at the same time. And that's how I got through before my pad got whatevered. I'd actually, I'm not going to get into this because it really pisses me off. Excuse my language, but John sent me a really nice pad. It was a gift from another person, and I got about halfway through it before it mysteriously. We're not going to get into that, but they had so much audio and it made my life easier. So I would get in the car. I had an hour drive back and forth to work every day, an hour and a half. I would turn it on, throw it on my stereo in my car, listen to it in stereo, and enjoy it. And there's a lot of stuff I listen to like that. I mean, Battlefield Earth I've actually listened to on the stereo in my computer because it sounds better in surround sound. But it's nice. And in Mission Earth, I went back and forth on. I had to go back and go back over the first 3 books like 3 times because I would do them and then I'd get off on something else and forget what the hell I was doing, and then I'd go back and listen. When they do make an audiobook, people, will be well worth it for y'all. One of these days, I'm gonna sit down and write down a review on it because it was really enjoyable experience. And I like well produced audiobooks because to me, it's just as good as a TV show. I'm not gonna lie. Something to do. When I was a kid, even though I think we had 1 channel on TV when I first started watching. Maybe it was 2, but I remember my dad, because my dad was born in 1911. He liked to listen to radio shows, old style radio shows. So he would cue them up, and we would sit there and watch candlelight and listen to radio shows. And I did that until I was in like 12, and then my mom thought it was cute because we had those speakers in your room. We had stereo throughout the whole house and a speaker in each room. She thought it was cute to turn on some love story and pipe it through the house. I'm like, no, Mom, no, you can't do that. We'll put on some easy listening. Either way.
I like audiobooks. All our stuff's in audio too. That's something I'm really proud that we do that. But I like the audio because as a writer, you sit on your duff a lot, oftentimes too much. And so for me, audiobooks is a great outlet too, because I try to get out and walk. I do some of these little like walking, running challenge type things just to keep active. And when I go out, that's when I tend to read or listen to books is while I'm out doing that. So you go out for, usually I try to get about 2 to 3 miles a day in, and that's when I can listen. That's when I do a lot of my stuff is listening there, and alternate between like nonfiction. I tend to focus on reading historical figures, like books about, like, say, Elon Musk or some other big inventors and creators, or some, and then obviously fiction. If I'm writing sci-fi, I don't read sci-fi. I read thrillers. If I'm writing thrillers, that's when I switch. And so I do try to.
That makes sense because I mean you're kind of reading it as writing it anyway. So I guess it's I don't know when sometime when I was young I got hooked on near now sci-fi. I don't know why. I mean, Star Trek's not really near now. Star Trek's 300-400 years in the future, but somewhere along the line, just different series just put me off on near now sci-fi. I mean, put me on. I'm sorry, it came out the wrong way. But and today, I still watch Babylon 5 every once in a while.
Yeah, Babylon 5 is pretty cool.
So I stuck that link in there, Joe. I gave you a Bitly as well, which is a lot shorter than a big long thing there for the Final Blackout on Amazon for $2.99. Yeah. And I see we have a new guest.
Yes, there's good-looking Bill down there. Look at that good-looking sucker. Let's. Wait, we don't want to see my ugly face. Hold on. Sorry about that. That was a little scary there for a minute. There's Bill. There you go. How you been, Bill? Life's treating you good?
So far, so good. Hello, everyone.
It feels like a year since I've seen you. I know it's only been like 2 months. It feels like a year.
Well, it should be 2 months.
James, have you met Bill?
I'm meeting him now.
Yes, Bill is an interesting character. Him and I have had some really interesting conversations over the last couple of years.
I'm not
I'll
sure.
see you home.
They both write near future military science fiction. Good
stuff.
Love it.
He's got a boss lead. He's got to watch. I should kick him in the butt. I see. How is the boss lead? You good?
As always.
Y'all headed to Dragon Con this year?
Sort of have to. I'm one of the senior directors.
I know you do. Well, I know you do, but I've
she
asked
teaches a writing workshop at it. So she
okay.
No,
okay, good. I look forward to seeing you this year. I hear there's a lot of people coming this year, so it ought to be interesting. James, you ought to come. They get a big crowd down there.
I'll get there. One of these years, I'll get to Dragon.
You got to come, James. Just put an app in by about February, and we might get. Should be no problem.
Sorry, I'll have to do that.
Yeah, we're trying to keep it from growing too quick again. In 2019, we had excess of 90,000 people, and it was just too many. And we've been we don't advertise. We've been limiting memberships ever since. Right now, it's wide open, so people can sign up.
Well, I can see that because they get a little crazy. I mean, it's big. I mean, what is it? 4 hotels, 5 hotels? I mean, it's insane.
It's neat.
I always lose 10 pounds when I go down there every time, which, I can use, but still, it works out. And, I actually give advice when people telling me to go. I said, look, about 3 months, 4 months before you go, you need to start walking, get some exercise in, especially if you're a little overweight, get some walking in, get yourself healthy.
Bill? Like when you've been doing this for a while with Dragon Con, what do you enjoy the most about it, or what would you like to see it grow into or expand into next?
Well, I like it the way it is. Thank you. I don't know where we would go from here or why we would go from here. We're already covering almost everything related to the genre.
Yeah.
And there's 3,300 events over 11 major buildings or floors of buildings. And that's why we keep Joe walking.
Yeah, I keep you walking a lot.
And what I enjoy about it is providing something that so many people enjoy, because I don't really attend it. I work at it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but seeing all those people streaming in, doing what they want, listening to Bill Shatner or somebody talk, it's always very satisfying, because it's what we've spent all year working on.
Yeah. It's got to be neat. And it's curious because when they get really big like that, it does kind of like, become hard to manage in a way. And so it's about how do you make it work? How do you keep it engaging and cool and get that audience? Because that's what I like about it, is where the readers and then the writers and people are able to connect and meet. And that's kind of neat.
That's the whole idea. It is a fan-run convention. We are almost entirely volunteer.
Yeah.
In fact, we had about 2,600 volunteers last year, or about that many again this year. And basically, we take a few weeks off and we meet in mid-October to make the major decisions so that we can do the next year and implement them. It takes that long.
Yeah. Wow.
And there is a team. I'm only marginally on. I'm sort of an advisor. And there's a team of senior directors that I guess the average one has about 20 years experience with this. And they gather regularly and then guide and it's just a cooperative effort from the new volunteers on up to us and the office to just create what it is. And we don't really make decisions to make big changes. They sort of evolve at us. People want them, people suggest them, the fans tell the directors tell us, and something happens. So like the tracks will change regularly. Not too regularly, but we introduce new tracks and ones that are of less interest, that kind of thing.
No, it sounds fun. I'm looking. My kids are little. They're at that young age now where it's 5, just turned 10, and then 12, and so
you realize we have a complete set of children's programming for that age group. Several events and an anime theater that runs 24/7.
Yeah, sometimes as a writer, you get stuck in your world, and next thing you know, it's like, holy cow, it's August, what happened? And you just get lost with the deadlines and everything you're trying to manage and do. And my wife keeps telling me all the time, she's like, you got to slow down a little bit. You got to actually try to go out to different events and different things like that.
Sound like mine.
To connect with people and be around people again.
Oh yes, as someone who's been doing almost as long as you, James. Well, we used to have to get newspapers. Now we have our phones so that we can find out what day of the week it is.
I know. And I have to figure out how to slow that down a little bit, because you're right. The challenge is you're going to be so engrossed, so involved that you're literally going to end up missing everything. And I've recognized that because my kids are at that little age. And so I'm trying to take that time where I can just be around for them to do that, so I don't miss all that.
There are 12 to 14 novels from being grown and gone. Just keep that in mind.
I know.
I think we need an author to write a book about Godzilla stomping Atlanta during Dragon Con. Oh yeah, man, I'm gonna write this book.
There are a number of books, and Larry Correa had us invaded by werewolves and killed off a whole room of people. He set one during Dragon Con. The fun part about Dragon Con was, of course, with the cosplay.
Yes.
Nobody noticed the monsters were there. They just got cosplay awards.
That'd be kind of set up like that. Yeah. I'll have to figure out something.
We're working on that, and of course, right now we're working on the Dragon Awards, which are a People's Choice Award. Anybody, you don't have to attend. Just go to dragoncon.org/awards and vote and nominate your favorite books, movies, graphic novels, all of that. So right now we're in the final state trying to get that going. It runs through July for the nominations, and that keeps us all busy. Too in the off season, so we really don't have a break. There's literally thousands, over 10,000 vote on that.
Now, what made you settle on Atlanta? What drew you guys to Atlanta? What's kept you in Atlanta?
The convention started in Atlanta. It was always in Atlanta. It was in July for the longest time, and then when we did a joint Dragon Con, World Con, they made us move it to Labor Day. So we signed a Labor Day contract, and now the hotels won't let us out because it's their slowest weekend of the year for rooms, and we filled the town. So they'd die they'd hate us if we moved. Why do we stay in Atlanta? It's been supportive. It's been welcoming. They let the parade grow. We have a parade. It started with a bunch of Klingons on motorcycles driving around the convention when we were in one hotel. And now we have about 3,500 participants and about 25 groups that go through and things like that. And we get massive support from the city for it. And the APD is great to work with too. The police department there.
I appreciate that.
They love us.
Not in Vegas, that we have a really good event that's here in the Southeast, and that's not out west in Vegas, because there is so much out there. It's nice to have something on this side. I'm down in Tampa, Florida, so I'm not actually all that far away from.
You're only about 8.5 to 9 hours drive. Come on up.
No, that's not y'all in Tampa. That's what's his face in Tampa.
And Atlanta's always been supportive, and Atlanta's also just a good town. I mean, the civil rights from here, and a lot of common sense, a lot of growth, a lot of science is
a lot to do there.
Yeah, and the movie industry's here.
Yeah.
So we've got lots of connections, lots to do.
It's neat.
One thing that's interesting, Joe, is like both James and Bill, they're near future military science fiction. They've got the mech soldier, all that stuff that's going on there. And at least the last time I talked to you, Bill, and when I talked to you as well, James, everything that's in there, which seems like so science fiction, is real. It exists, except for the battery packs. That
getting there.
It's getting there, but they're enough. Like you need the extension cords aren't long enough to make it.
Well, they've got now for the military foot soldier, they've got a cloaking device. Cloaking device might be a bad word. It's more like a mirror device. It's a shield that goes around the individual, and it basically just reflects everything around you, kind of like the Predator device. Well, they've had this for a couple of years now. The original version came with a 90-pound lithium battery. Okay, let's be honest. You can't have a 90-pound lithium battery and all of your equipment, which is around 80 pounds anyway. No soldiers toting 160 pounds around with you. I don't care what kind of advantage it gives you. So they've been coming down now. Last time I talked with Ross Reed about this, who's one of the developers, he said the battery was down to about 50 pounds. It's still too heavy. He said they need a lithium battery that can produce the same amount of power as the 80 or 90 pound one can for 10 pounds. He said any more than that, we're taking equipment away from the soldiers that they need in the field. He said so, but he said they're well on their way. He said within 10 years or less, he said they'll probably have it out there. So I've actually seen it in action. They actually brought it to a conference. And a guy standing there and he turns it on, and you're looking. And he's standing there, but what you see is like the stage the ceiling, the people in front. It was really just weird. But when it's in the woods, you ain't going to see them. Your ass is dead, is what you are. Even in the sand, you pretty much did. That was kind of it's impressive. And of course, and the reason they want to do this is they have a new laser pistol. Actually, it's not new. It was the Mark M80 they developed back in the 90s, but it used too much power and it was too heavy. But now the gun itself is actually pretty light, and it's a multiple shot, but it also runs on, guess what, a battery. So, we got some issues with developing batteries here. Go ahead, Bill.
If batteries had developed like computer chips, the batteries, you could run your car on 2D batteries for a week, because there's been that much. Batteries have not significantly changed since lithium came in, and that's over 20 years ago now, and it's massively due for something. But I'm waiting to see. The suit I used, I have a military series called Blood and Armor, and it's the first book, Never Again, introduces these suits that are actually the DARPA suits that they've pretty much given up on. And the reason they gave up on them is the extension cord from the truck with a generator is needed at the moment, so they're not functional in a combat situation, really. And so they ship them over to another country, and lo and behold, woof and poof, and there's a battery that'll work them.
Yeah,
that affects everything. But that battery is nowhere right now.
No, it's nowhere where it needs to be.
Yeah, and it does point out that when you're using new technology, there is another awkward side effect if you spend all day in a power suit.
Well, what do you think about this, though, Bill? So,
don't forget they catch on fire sometimes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The whole concept, I actually see it going is the battery suit. I think was amazing, but where I actually think it's going to head, though, is where you've seen like Tesla's Optimus, right? I think in time you're going to see a militarized version of that. Where
I already got it.
And the way I think it'll be slightly different is one, you obviously will have a version where you would have a machine semi-autonomous or autonomous like that. But I actually think one of the other ways we can actually see it would be as surrogates. So you would have as a drone operator, basically a surrogate operator. So you have a soldier who can basically jump into this suit digitally, whether it's through like a metaverse interactive way or something along those lines. But now he's got this mechanical machine, this robot, and they're able to fight and execute missions and do that. And when these things get destroyed, you just grab another one essentially. And so then it's about how fast can you get these supply pods essentially with these replacements into battlefield locations, and you use that. And this, by doing something like that, you're not putting a soldier in harm's way. You're not having that person out there.
You're putting the other soldier in harm's way.
Yeah, well, yeah, the other people are. But the big thing, though, it comes down to, aside from the battery piece, then it comes down to the comms piece. How do you secure that? And so until they figure out like quantum communication in making a steady state comm system with extended ranges, encrypted, you're stuck. You're right. You're back to either a battle suit or you're back to linear, line of sight control and things like that.
A signal bouncing off a satellite's got a 1.25 second delay. That's deadly in combat.
Yeah,
So
it is deadly in
it can also
combat.
be jammed. It can also be jammed and spoofed as well. And that's the other kicker part too. John, like in one thing they notice is in the Ukraine war, right? When we were giving the Ukrainians copperheads, these the older version artillery shells, guided munitions, between whether it's them or some of the Excaliburs and other things. The challenge is these were GPS guided munitions, and they worked really good for about a week or two. And then they figured out they could jam the crap out of these things. And suddenly this weapon that we had that was really good suddenly is a dud, not working out so well. So we got to evolve to change to the next kind of the next weapon.
Battlefield evolves of attack and defense. And you're talking about robot soldiers that are remotely controlled. Long time ago, back in the early ages when there was Hubbard and Heinlein, and Bob Silverberg wrote a story, I believe it was, where it's the final coming and the devil and the final battle against the devils. And we send all our robots that we're controlling from and defeat the devil's army, and the angels come down and take all the robots, and everybody's going, wait.
Yeah, what do you do now?
There are new warriors. I mean, you know, they're going to have robot t-shirts for the people.
Yeah.
You're going to definitely see a lot of that, a lot of new technologies coming up. But that's the only problem with all this technology is that the Russians and the Chinese have really good hackers. We have really good hackers. So who's going to be? Can you imagine a flight of F-35s being hacked by the Chinese and sent back against us? That makes this shit really dangerous. And it's something they want to talk about, but they don't want to scare anybody off from building it. So it's
AI that's in James's book that does that exact thing. He starts off with this app that was created by China that's very similar to this one that's so popular right now, TikTok. He doesn't name it in the series, but from there profiles all the countries and what people and all the leaders, what they would do. And then with the deep fake, creating all the conflict and all the, the stuff that can be done with that by getting leaders saying different things they didn't say. But then people, how do you say, I didn't say that? Because everything else around it is real. Then it's, you create this war that gets created on it. So it's you
see it play out though, right? I mean,
that's exactly the point there. You see this stuff happening right now. But that's also why I was really excited about having both of you on here with the book Final Blackout, because that one there, even though it was written 85 years ago, it gets into the morality aspect of, underlying all this stuff here is like, what the lieutenant does and because the equipment, all the military has gone well past them. But then when you got the United States coming in with their big ships and all the big weaponry and stuff like that, the lieutenant saying, no, he's built a country, built it back up again. And what he's done to do that and how he's protected his people is very noteworthy. But what they were doing to be able to protect their people is also part of what we're celebrating on this Memorial Day. That's those people, that mentality of the men that gave, what they did to enable us to be able to have what we have.
Yeah, the book is, of course, an ode to the real warrior, to the real soldier who can accomplish despite the rear echelon and other letters, and can also is actually fighting for the people and comes back and ends the fighting and forces an artificial situation. If you think about it, the world that Mr. Hubbard had them set up was sort of a controlled level of military and other technology, which when someone with better shows up causes a lot of problems. But it's like an ideal end to a total dystopia, because it's showing the total wrong. I mean, Europe looks all of Europe is that 8 to 10 mile front that was World War II between the trenches and the trench lines. All of Europe has turned into that. And the reaction is a dislike of war. So like Forever War and other science fiction books like it, it is in some ways a good military adventure that is an anti-war book.
Yeah, that's what Heinlein called it. Yeah, it's definitely, it's like it really shows, becomes the best war book. At least
there's no glamorous. I mean, people talk about the glamorization of war. The fact there's nothing glamorous about killing fellow human people. It is a necessary fact in a war, but there's nothing glamorous about it. That's one of the really sad, tragic things I see unfolding, like with the Ukraine stuff. I mean, if you're on Telegram or you're on some of these different channels and you see this, the glorification of watching FPV drones hunt people down and kill them, that's really dehumanizing to see that.
Oh yeah, you didn't see what the Ukrainians did yesterday, huh? They blew the living crap out of the Russians all over Moscow.
Terrible.
What happened?
It is. They launched a major drone offensive yesterday. They tore up all over the place, man. I guess they got tired of getting Kiev bombed. Yeah, it was all drone attack too. It's strictly drones, and it was a beast of an attack. I forgot how many they said, but there was a lot. Did a lot of damage. I guess, like I said, they got tired of Kiev getting blown up.
Well, 3 days ago, the Russians launched the largest attack ever.
Yeah.
Something like 400 Iranian drones.
How is it every time it's like a larger attack than the next one? It's like
because Iran's supplying them drones. But there is I don't want to get into this too deep because it's not for this show, but there is a little light in the tunnel. Part of the Iranian deal Trump's cutting is no more drones to Russia.
We'll see if that actually happens. But the problem.
This is the deal. Either it happens or Israel goes in there and blows up all their uranium shit. It's not really much of a choice for it. Now China might supply, but China is trying to stay on our good side right now. So China's a flip of a coin right now because they have to stay on our side. We've dropped their economy from 11 trillion to about 7 trillion. They're in financial trouble. Without the United States, they're going to crash and burn.
That country's dangerous when it's like that, though, too. And that's really.
Well, yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. That's when the country's the most dangerous.
A war is a good way to solve the problem.
But they have 28 nukes deployed. We have 3,000. So it's a little off. Plus, we have a way bigger.
They don't need nukes. You remember the Colonial Pipeline attack that happened on the East Coast in I think it was the 21, right? So. That one cyber hack, all they did was use BitLocker and locked out the controls there. That nearly crippled the East Coast of the United States with fuel. So if there's a conflict with China, whatever happens, it was Taiwan, something like that, that fight will not stay over there. They will hit here with critical infrastructure against things like that, which will really hammer us.
That would be the biggest mistake they could make because we would use tactical nukes. And China knows that.
No, that's
the
problem.
You use nukes. You just cyber stuff is far more devastating than nukes. You turn the lights off.
No, there's nothing more dangerous than a tactical 5 kiloton nuke which can level Beijing. That's a whole different ball game then. Plus, not only did it take out your infrastructure, but it contaminated it so you can't use it for 10,000 years. It's a much different thing. And China knows. Remember, we're the only country that ever blew people up with nukes and killed them. Okay, we're the only ones who ever did. 250,000 of them to date.
I don't know if we would use it again, though.
Trump would. I can tell you right now, Trump would in a heartbeat. He wouldn't even have a problem with it. He already told Iran that we would nuke them. He told Iran the other day, if you were ever stupid enough to use a nuke, we would level your whole country. And I believe he meant that wholeheartedly. He would level their whole country. We can also use neutron bombs, which of course is not an explosion. It's just a contamination, and it only lasts for 2 years. So we can contaminate the whole area and 2 years later come in and take it. Do you realize our Air Force is 11 times the size of theirs? 11 times. Their Navy is only a couple of ships, only about 50 ships bigger than ours, and nowhere near as advanced.
Well,
so, and that's just us. That's not even bringing in Europe into the aspect. Bringing in NATO and Europe, it puts them at a point. There's no win situation for China or Russia, for that matter. It's a no-win situation for them.
Which is why you don't use direct conflict. You hit pipelines, you hit cables, on ocean cables, you cyber attack power sources and things like that. Russia's not attacking military bases in Ukraine. They're attacking the power sources and the manufacturing of things because that's how they figure they can win the war. We're very vulnerable to that. Our open system makes us more vulnerable to sabotage. And unfortunately, we've probably got hundreds of agents came over the Mexican border in the last 4 years that we don't know we're going to do it. But let's not get into the politics of it.
Yeah, that's
what this does do is take away from the glory that the book has and other things. We're coming up on Memorial Day. We got Memorial Day here. And it's not the nuke. It's going to be the soldier who keeps the peace. The nukes end the world. The soldier's going to have to keep the peace.
The nukes don't have to.
Our army and navy.
We don't have enough nukes to end the world anymore. In the old days, we did when we had 10,000, but with 2,500.
Like you're saying, it's about it's about remembering the guys who are out there who volunteered to go fight. Like I've told John, I've lost more friends to suicide than I did from Iraq.
Yeah,
I
so
spent
did I
3.5
actually.
years
Yeah.
there, and I've had more of my friends. I have just they've lost that battle, and that is a tough unseen fight that people don't always factor in or think about in a war, especially one as long as Iraq, is the consequences to some of that. That's a serious struggle that people deal with because you're used to that mission, that purpose. You come home and now you don't have it. You don't have that mission, that purpose, and you don't have that camaraderie of your friends and that understood what was going on. And now you have to integrate back into a society that doesn't get it, that doesn't
It's
have
hard to
anything in common
lose.
with you.
It's hard to lose situational awareness
Mhm.
and watching all threats in all directions once you come back. And some of them don't adjust. I was a counselor, and I've seen more in that occasions. And others come back with a physical problem. People that were by the burn areas in Desert Storm. My brother-in-law, he was a grunt, and they dumped Agent Orange over the field next to him, and his lungs now are porous.
Yeah, it's kind of. I mean, some of the issues I'm dealing with even right now. I'm 47. I had bilateral hip replacement by the time I was 32. 4 months after I got back from my last tour in Iraq. Just I got vascular necrosis developed out of nowhere in both my hips at 32. From the burn pits. I was an interrogator, so we capture enemy materials, cell phones, laptops. We have to burn that stuff after you've gotten all your intel off these things like that. So you don't burn these things. You're not supposed to. Lithium-ion batteries don't generally work well when you burn them. So
Yeah.
we're burning these things for everyone has to go out and do this. It's a couple hours, a couple times a week to go out and do that stuff. I got itch with that. Like lung capacity, I was telling John, like my lung capacity is sitting at 62%. I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with the right side, why a third of it doesn't work anymore. These are just some of the issues that linger after the fact. So sure, you made it home, you survived it, but you're now having to deal with that war in the mind of the stuff that just doesn't turn off, and the physical ailments of that stuff. It's how I got into writing was PTSD therapy because I had to find some other outlet, some other way.
You're about the fifth person who's told me that I've met through Writers of the Future who have actually told me that they started writing because of PTSD. It helped them with it.
Joe Haldeman says it constantly.
Yeah, it's good therapy. It keeps you sane.
If you look at the book, Final Blackout, if you look at the lieutenant, the main character who's never named, that's the suppression of emotions, the inability to contact others, the willingness to die at the end. Although they're heroic, they are also indications of the same type of PTSD problem James is referring to, in that it's an adjustment to the battlefield, which he never really comes out of. If you look at his civilian life the last couple of years in the book, he's still a military leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's hard to make that adjustment and do that because, that's a skill set. Interrogating terrorists is a skill set.
It's a big skill set.
Difficult, and you have to hear and see a lot of things.
James, you need to come on the network. We have 3 hosts that used to do that in Iraq. Well, 2 in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan.
It's challenging. How do you turn that off? What do you do with that?
I've asked them that very question.
That to civilian life,
like what you're doing, writing has got to help. It has to help.
Writing is the way to do it because you can share those stories. You can write some amazing stories, but you can add that layer of realism that connects with these other vets and these other people because they've been there, they've seen that, they know that stuff.
Oh, there's an email for you, John. Somebody just posted their email for you. No, I agree. I mean, I've talked to enough people. I was lucky. I was in between Vietnam and Iraq. Even though I was in the service, I was just happened to be in between the two. I did a lot of other stuff which I can't talk about, unfortunately. But and I did a lot of stuff that would have been a prelude to that. But it's what it is, And everybody I know who was working in what you were talking about had a hard time when they got home. Matter of fact, one of my new hosts, He's in his 40s, good looking guy, works for the UN, has a lot of issues because he just can't get it out of his head. He tries, matter of fact, he was talking to me a couple weeks ago. We were talking about how can you sleep at night. He was having issues with sleep. And I said, if you don't want to use drugs, then you're going to have to find something that just wears you down. And he started writing himself. And a matter of fact, I told him that. I said, a lot of people I know who do this are writing. And he started he's writing his whole entire experience of being over there.
This can be cathartic.
Yeah. And I told him, I said, come hang out with us. And, I actually told him, come by and hang out with us today. I said, just come hang out. I said, there's a lot of people in this network that have served and have been through stuff, and people who haven't served but understand what they've been through. I said it's a good place to be.
Some of the psychedelics really can help though too. I mean, I've done the ketamine, but like in December, I went down to Mexico and did that ibogaine 5-MeO DMT treatment down there. That was really good. The ibogaine one was really helpful. I was able to finally get off of taking the antidepressant, the Lexapro. The Lexapro is great, dude. As an interrogator, that was awesome. I did not care, right? Totally deadens your emotions. But the problem is when you deaden your emotions like that, it really wreaks havoc on your family, with your kids, your wife, and trying to be able to emotionally connect with people because you've deadened that. But this was really good to get off of that, help that, and just turn some of those thoughts off, so to speak.
That is a price soldiers pay, as family.
I went to a special course.
Come back different. I did a lot of historical work and interviews with SEALs, especially from the 70s and 80s. And the divorce rate is almost 100%.
It's ridiculous.
Good topic. When you guys go with DragonCon, one thing you guys look at is writing therapy and some of the different psychedelic type things that people have tried to get off of the pharmacology routes. Because man, the VA is really good with that. And I'm not saying that stuff doesn't work. It can, but it has its own side effects to it. And that's one of the things a lot of people don't talk about, is how do you get off of it? How do you find what else is out there and available? Not a lot of people know about it.
In a way,
those heavy pharmaceuticals are that is definitely a dead end route.
It is. And I was lucky. My wife was very understanding, because I pretty much, for the first 3 years I met her, I was pretty much entirely intoxicated the entire time. And I was not a nice person, but somehow or another she dealt with it. And that actually helped me to get past a lot of different things. But unfortunately, life is life. And you're not told when you go into this stuff. You know what I saw? You might have some issues, and we're going to send you to a special course on how to deal with your emotions. Really, that just scared me right there. I was thinking, okay, that's not even something you want to hear, because you know what that's going to end up as. Before you even get there, you know what that's going to end up as. I tell you what was fun though, was prisoner of war camp. I got to go twice. I had fun. That's special forces, stupid training. That's what that was. It's hard. I know everybody's got to adjust. Everybody's got to do it in their own ways. I know Bill and I've talked about this before, and other people have talked about it on the network. But you just sometimes have to figure out a way to cope with it, and it's hard. And it's just some things just don't want to go away. It just wants to stay back there and meandering around and irritating and shit. But I stay busy. Even today, I stay busy. And I'm retired, but still stay busy. I should tell you something right there.
Retired. The fact is, do you realize for the last 20 minutes, we've been talking about at least 10 different things that's a price that our soldiers, our veterans pay.
That's very true.
What they do. And I'd like to point out that we've got to... Those who aren't going through it have to be supportive. They have to be some understanding. We've got to help some of these guys get off the street and stuff, because we put them there, and by putting them into that situation, and everyone reacts differently.
And it's sad,
which is what this Memorial Day is about, to remember, on top of indigestion and barbecue.
Like,
Yeah.
Memorial Day should be one of them days where we go around and see how many of the homeless veterans we can get off the streets. It's there's a lot. I mean, if we had to deal with the ones from Vietnam, and then now the Iraq and Afghanistan. It was two and a friend of mine the other day didn't realize it was two Iraqi wars. He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "There was the first Iraqi war with Storm
First
and
does it,
Norman,
second does it, yeah.
and then the second one." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah, there was two." I said, "The first one wasn't really a war. We just went over there to make up for Vietnam. We just wanted to show everybody in the world that we could kick somebody's ass." I said, "The second was a more serious war." And I said, neither case do we have any business being over there. Now, granted, I will say, what was it, 4,000 in the first war, 3,800 in the second. That's pretty good for Americans. I mean, that's a very little loss of life for fighting a war where we killed a couple 100,000 people. But still, there's got to be a better way, an easier way. Maybe there's some
perhaps that's the other lesson. Memorial Day is that. Sun Tzu, the only way to win a war is to ensure peace.
Yeah,
that's quoted in Final Blackout 2 at one point. In fact, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
If Trump would just release one of them tungsten rods on some island somewhere, I think that would pretty much end the war, any war for that matter, because that's not a nuke. It has no propellant, no explosive. And one of them can flatten the whole entire Moscow or Hong Kong.
That's the end of James Rosone's last book.
Yeah, it's an easy. I mean, we've been having Thor or Thor's hammer up there for at least 25 years now, and from what I understand, the tungsten rods are pretty big. These aren't like little bitty ones made for knocking out missiles. These are made for like flattening cities. So they come in at ungodly speed.
Yeah,
when they hit the ground,
not quite enough yet. But if we can get them launch them off the moon, there's enough time to get that speed up to where you're talking a kinetic effect that literally is a city killer for a couple of tons.
Yeah. The ones that are deployed right now.
I guess you think, Bill, like if you have the rod, you've got it descending down. Is it possible to put a jetpack on the back there enough to help?
Oh, you could, but the whole point of these were not to have to use explosives or fuel. That was the whole design. The ones I got right now originally the what I like to call the James Bond version, which were 3 foot long and 8 inches around. They were designed to kill missiles, but our guidance systems back then were kind of crappy, so it wasn't really a good thing. So then they designed what Jimmy calls Thor's Hammer Phase 2, which is 16 foot long, 2 foot around. So one from where it's parked right now, which is on the other side of Van Allen belt, which is about 2/3 of the way to the moon, maybe not quite 2/3, maybe halfway, is enough to, like, if it hit Moscow, it would take out the whole quarter section it took out. So 4 of them would flatten Moscow. 4 of them would flatten Beijing. It would probably take 5 to do New York. It just depends on the size of the city, but they're killers, and they're there. They've been there for a while. It's a legit thing. It's not even classified anymore.
Could you do that though? Can you take a rod and put the propellant on the back of the rocket? Basically,
you could, yeah. You can make it a rocket.
You can do it down. You can't launch them up that way, or we'd use them as well. But of course, you can accelerate them down and add a few thousand miles an hour to the head. Which would,
how we found out? With the original ones. The way we found out the length of them was the Shuttle Bay's bay. The bigger ones actually had to fit in the Shuttle Bay's bay to get them up there. And NASA got themselves busted. There's a photograph. It looks like a revolver thing. It's all tungsten rods. There's 16 of them, and it's built into this thing. It looks like it just goes in, clips in place, and just and drops them. We've been having a couple things for a while, which I'm kind of confused about. I know we've got at least 11 lasers in space now. What they're using them for, I have no idea.
Geosurveying only.
Yeah, that's what they say they're for. But I know the ones that Reagan had designed. So we went out to this thing in New Mexico to go see this launch. So they took a laser. It was one of the Star Wars lasers, mind you, which is some bitch was like this big around. And they took what looked like a flying saucer and set it on top of it, which was 30 feet around and 10 feet tall. And they held it in place and they shot the laser underneath it. And it superheated and shot the damn thing into space. So they were looking for a new way to launch stuff into space. But the problem was when you put any real weight on it and superheated it with the laser to send it up, it always busted out the bottom of the system. We didn't have a material strong enough to handle that ride up to space. When it was vented, where it could come out on the sides, it was fine. But when you tried to enclose it and send it up, it wasn't. It wasn't such a good thing.
It's effectively just a different form of explosion.
Yes, pretty much is what it was.
And you can fire a shell into space if you have a big enough gun and explosion, but the shell's going to be pulverized in the effort.
So these are cool. And well, that was the same group that's trying to work on the space elevator. Space elevator, I got to say, is lofty goals, man. I just don't know if we have those kind of technologies right now. That's a serious goal. I mean, first of all, what are you going to use for a cable to go to the space and back? I mean, how big around is this thing got to be?
I worked for some years with the space elevator group back in the 90s.
Oh, did you? Jesus.
And they were working on an elevator. They were working on creating the carbon fibers that would be capable of sort of holding and connecting at that great length. And they were
I think they elevated the easy part. I mean,
the elevators getting it up, but having those fibers not tear apart with the pressure and the pull and hold against the centripetal force and everything. They were about 4% of the way there, and they already had things that were an eighth of an inch across that could hold 17 or 18 tons.
Yeah, I've heard some good stuff. I mean, I've heard some really good stuff because I know I had seen just recently. So they got a crawler version where it's going to crawl up to whatever this thing is they're making. But they've also got a version that actually has thrusters on it. So they just thrust itself up. So the cable's basically just to keep it from, flopping off somewhere.
Guidance.
But the one that NASA wants is the crawler. It clips to the cable and goes up the cable. So I don't know what the differences are, why they want one versus another one. That's not. I don't get me wrong. I got a bachelor's in science, but I don't have no idea what they're talking about there.
Secondary damage on the having a hot engine and fuel.
Yeah. And fuel. You're right.
If you've got enough fuel to go up the cable, you got to have something to slow it on the way down. The crawler is effectively connected to the cable and creates its own friction both ways.
I know NASA said the last one they said would take 3 days to get to space. And I'm like, so what? Well, I mean, it's better than sending rockets up there. It's got to be cheaper in the long run. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know Elon has made launching shit into space virtually cost effective, but I mean, every time you turn around, he's launching 3, 4, 5 rockets. I mean, he's insane with that stuff. Do you know he's launched more rockets since he started doing this than the United States? All the space fan races combined, their entire time they've been launching rockets, he's launched more in the last 2 years. That's outrageous. But I used to preach all the time when I used to host Wake Up USA. I said, if we're going to ever be serious about space, you're going to have to privatize it. And they started privatizing it, and space has changed. I mean, look, we're building capsules in 2 years where it took NASA 10. We're building programs that we got tourists going to space now, which we're not going to talk about the tourists going to space. We still got issues with the tourists in space, but at least that last shot with Bezos, I've got issues with. And
anyway, getting back to the author's quill, then, just in terms of books, like I'm recommending Final Blackout for people if you want good things to read that celebrates the soldier and what they're representing. Any other books that you all would recommend?
The soldier and what they're representing. A number of books, of course. You've mentioned Heinlein, and of course, Starship Trooper. Yeah. And that's primarily concerned, of course, with the loyalty to your unit aspect more than anything else, which is important. Probably the most significant emotional bond of any military unit. Yeah. So it's very valid. Forever War, to talk about the separation of the warrior from society, which Joe was dealing with when he wrote it, especially the last half of it, where the world evolves and you're, because of time dilation, lost. It's not your world anymore. And can probably get some others. And if you want to talk about soldiers' frustration, there's a number of writers from other periods as well that we can get there. Fiction and nonfiction about the soldier being welcomed. There's Tommy this and Tommy that in all of his writing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree. I mean, if the most important thing for any platoon or any fighting group is that loyalty, that camaraderie. Without it, it's not a group that's going to make it. The guys who are going to stand there and held hand. It's like I was watching. Just shows you the difference. We're out at the beach in Florida about 2-3 years ago, and this kid's out there drowning. So I was just going to swim out and get him, and they're like, no, 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 no. So a bunch of Marines got together because there's an Air Force base right there, and some Air Force guys, and they made a chain out to get him. But do you realize there were 1,000 people on that beach? No one else did a thing but those guys. The rest of them would have watched that kid drown. I'm not kidding you. All them people standing on the beach would have watched them kid drown. If it wouldn't have been for them guys standing there and made that chain, that kid would have drowned because no one was brave enough to go out there and do it. It shows you right there the difference.
It's not just courage, it's initiative. A Marine is taught to take the initiative in a situation. That's one of their great elements. And the civilian isn't. The civilian's warned not to get involved because lawsuits are involved. Lawyers
I was waiting for cell phones to come out.
Society.
But I was waiting for the cell phones to come out, but they passed a law in the South. If you videotape someone while they're in dying and you don't help, you go to prison. They said, "Oh no!" Some guy up north, made the law change. He was filming the lady pushing the kids in the car into the water and watched them drown. Instead of going out there and saving their 2 kids, which he could have done, they sent him to prison for that. And even though he ain't the one who committed the crime, I'm like, yeah, you should go to prison. Come on, people.
Yeah,
that's called that is participating in the crime.
Yeah,
I'd have been in the way. That's one of the things my wife tells me all the time. Stay out of it. I'm staying. I should stay out of it. Stay out. I'm like, baby, I can go stay out. It's not going to happen.
Americans are changing on that, though. They really are, Joe. Used to be they told them to sit passively on a jet if it's being taken over. Not anymore. One of the reasons the air marshals are thinned down is because if you read, every time there's a passenger causing trouble of any sort, 6 people around them jump them and hold them down.
Yeah,
the passengers ain't gonna put up with it no more. Well, because we all seen what happened if you don't. You fly into the side of a building. I don't want to see that anymore. Matter of fact, they did. They were on the show last night. They were arguing about. We hadn't talked about 9/11 in a long time, but for some reason it came up last night. I think we were talking about Bin Laden actually, and it came up. But they're still arguing about how those buildings came down, who did what did who. And it's like, well, it don't matter. We done killed all kind of people, so it doesn't matter at this point. We went on a rampage like the thing going on in the Middle East right now. It's not our problem to get involved with. Stay out of it.
Yeah, but to go back, like in Never Again, I show a unit having massive camaraderie, sort of. It's actually French Foreign Legion level, where your total loyalty is to the unit, and you're right, etc. And it allows them to take massive casualties. 10% is supposed to be enough to put a unit out of combat worthy, but some units in some situations, lost battalion or whatever, have suffered 50, 60, 80% and still had the remainder fighting at the end of that, including a number of German units. That wasn't loyalty to anything except we're together, we're going to keep fighting. And I try to say that now. Again, James, you do that.
Units doing the same there. You got units, a lot of units that are sometimes 40% manning. They're still stuck having to sit there and hold that line. It's just terrible.
That's what they're taught to, and it's embedded into your head. And you make friends with these people. I mean, when you're in boot camp and in tech school and in special forces school and all these different classes you go to, all these training sessions you go to, you start to rely on these people. I know everybody in my company, I did until I got transferred into special forces. I mean, I relied on all of it. And then when I got transferred, the guys, what the best part was? When I transferred in to the new group, these guys treated me like, oh, don't worry, we got your back no matter what. They didn't even know me from Bean, but the guy said as soon as he met me, he said, "Oh, I know you're going to be one of us." And I was until the captain of the Nimitz decided I needed to be somewhere else. He's like, "Oh no, I got another job for you, Joe." I'm like, really? Just sound like this, but it shows you the difference. And then I would have fought with any of them guys and died. I had no problem with it. There was a bunch of groupie good. Like I said, they were the pilots sometimes. They were really iffy.
You're a serious blooded army. You've got the 4th one out. It's been out for coming up on a year now. Do you have plans for for more books to go out, continue in that line?
Bill?
Yeah.
We've had, we're talking about it for next year, but right now, all the authors involved, including myself, are deeply involved in contracts for other books, having met that one. Because when you're a writer, you try to, as James knows and Joe knows, and John sends them out, you're about a year or two in advance at a minimum.
Yeah.
When you're going to deliver, when you get a contract normally. And in our case, I'm finishing a mystery novel with someone at the moment. And another author, the other author on the project, other authors are working on a major project with John Ringo, and another one is putting her own fantasy novels out from Bain now. So between them, we'd love to. We know exactly what we're going to do. I can tell you who we're going to conquer next and who's going to jump them. But
guys, be sure y'all send in your emails to icar@cox.net if you want to get one of them posters. I know I've only seen 3 come in, so that means there's 7 left right now. ICAR@cox.net. Send them to me. I'll forward your email to John. John will send them to you.
Yeah,
You better do it quick.
Final Blackout's also on special right now on Amazon for only $2.99. So it's a
Yeah,
special.
go get the book. Yeah, I actually posted the link. So for anybody who was on Rumble or YouTube, the link is actually posted it. If you can't find it for some reason, just text me at icar@cox.net. Or if you happen to be on one of my friends lists, it's better to text me via my phone. You'll get a faster response that way.
But just go to Amazon.com and search Final Blackout. You'll find it there.
Yeah. You just type that online, it'll come right up. It's I know we got to get out of here pretty soon. I know I've seen a couple of messages come across the bottom of my thing, but everybody from Memorial Day, I hope everyone has a great Memorial Day weekend. Yep. Get out there, enjoy yourselves, bring your friends in, bring your family in, hug somebody who served, or at least say thank you for serving.
Yeah, that's the main thing I wanted to be able to accomplish with this show today, was just like to give a perspective of what we're actually celebrating. It's not just a barbecue day, it's a day off. There's a reason why it's being celebrated, and a little bit more of the history behind what it is. And it's the men that we're celebrating with this, the men and the women who decided to do something to, from my perspective, help guarantee that I have what I have here in the United States, and I can do what I can do now that can't be done in other countries.
And what's that, Martha? Scared of what? Oh, you mean a sword? Oh, no. What do you mean? Have I ever been scared? Hell yeah, I've been scared. Ain't nothing like up against your head. It'll make you rethink your life really quickly. It's part of it.
It's tough to have been a soldier, because unlike the generations behind me, World War II was popular. We had Vietnam. Yeah. And then we've adjusted, and the military is much smaller. You're not part of everybody. Everyone doesn't have the problems you do, like it was in the 50s and 60s when Memorial Day was first really being celebrated in the 40s. But they need help. There's those men out there who, if you take a moment, do more than just give them $1.
Yeah.
Call your congressman and bitch while you're at it.
Well, part is just repurposing. People need a purpose. They need a mission. They need
something in life.
And you got to
buy from businesses who say they hire veterans.
Yeah.
That's probably
support veteran writers. Support
veteran.
Give
a vet a job, people. Vets can use a job. Give a job. Give a vet. What do you mean? Who you want to give me a job? I got a job. But thanks for the offer. Yeah, really. No, I have plenty enough to keep me busy.
Joe, you're unemployable at this point. Don't worry.
Yes, I am. Look, I tell people all the time, you don't want to come work for you. I am an evil, bad person. What's that, Christopher? James, Christopher wants to know, you got a website where he can find you at?
I can drop that in the comments here.
Yeah, just drop it in. And Bill, I think you got one too, Bill. Give it out while you're at it. I might as well give them out because this looks like a mostly Memorial Day audience. Maurice, is that your name? Maurice, where are you at? Where? Oh, you're part of the contingent in Saudi Arabia. Okay, I'm not sure.
Bloodndarmor.com.
Yes, I have never been in Saudi. And if I was, I couldn't tell you anyway. How's that?
Now, Bill, you got blood and SMOR.
Oops, my mistake.
I'm gonna
ARMOR.
Good thing we got a monitor going on
I can
here.
write, but I can write,
Moderator.
but I can't type.
I don't feel bad.
I'll do it again.
Okay.
Marsha, again. You mean me personally? Oh, I have to find a ghostwriter. I've tried right now. I got lots of stuff in my head.
There we
I'm
go.
gonna drop it in the private chat for you because it didn't seem to want to drop it in my.
So, Joe, can you pull it out of the private? Because we got both
I
James
most
and
certainly
Bill Fawcett's.
Yes, I can grab them out right now. Let me grab this one first. Boop. And grab it over here and put it into comments.
Yeah, you
So
sent it
says
to me.
that. There you go. Bloop. That one's going out right now. Let me go get the other one. And there's the other one. Okay. Oh, wait, no, that's the one. I already put that. Did I get the wrong one? I think I did get the wrong one. Hold on, let me do this again. Oh, let's try this and start all over here. We're just going to cheat, people. There we go. And I'll put it out for y'all right now. Comments. If for some reason you can't find it, I'll have these in my email, guys, so you can always come over and grab them if you need them like that, or just catch me on there. Again, if you want to get this poster, you better get your butts busy, because I'm going to bring it up on the next show in the chat. And the chat's audience is twice the size of this one. I'm just warning you ahead of time. Nothing lasts long over there. Anytime we give anything out over there, it's like, and it's gone first 10 minutes.
Cool.
It's a nightmare.
I've got your address now, Joe. So I'll mail you some.
Yeah, anything, and y'all see, because Bill had a book up here too. See, anybody who sends me books, this is where they stay until we replace them. Usually there's 2 or 3 of them up here right now. But this, of course, if everybody knows, we just came back from this is book 41. Oh, now I'm gonna have to show y'all. We talked about it. Okay. This is the one is this the one I'm giving away this year? Yeah, this is the beat up I'm giving away this year. This has got every judge and every winner is in this book's autograph. Okay, I'm going to give it. I'm not giving it away till Christmas.
And a brilliant editor too.
Yes, and brilliant, and a brilliant editor. So I've got 6 of these I'm giving away. 6 years with John and them. So I always get 2 books. I get 1 set for me because I have them autographed by everybody, and then I have them personally autographed by other people when we go to the gala. These are autographed at the signing. So, I got 6 of them I'm going to give away, 6 different books. All of them are good. All the stories are really good. But, oh, no, we're not just giving. Y'all going to have to work for them, people. Oh, no. I'm not giving away autographed books just here. No. You know how I am around Christmas. I always make y'all work for whatever we're giving away. And I found some other stuff. I ain't got too much, but we got some stuff coming in November, too. So we'll be giving that away as well.
And then, Joe, if you've not read one of James's books, too, because I think you've already read Bill's first book, but James has got, I know that you like the audiobook. So maybe, James, if you can send him a link to your.
Well, I can kind of mind read Bill, which is kind of nice. While I reveal it, I get a lot of roll. While I'm thinking about this, all right, people, near now sci-fi, and Jeffrey, I have. What do you want? Near now sci-fi, Jeffrey. What's the number one best? Oh, I'm not getting that. That'll take too long. We don't have enough time for that. Best TV series, best book. What are you talking about? Best movie? Because not all books become a movie or a TV show for that matter. And some of them are really good sci-fi. And then, of course, you have your TV series that make it. And, of course, you've got your movies that make it. Well, we just had Orson Scott Card on last week for Ender's Game, yes. Actually, that archive broke a couple of records. It's 3 different places on Rumble, on here, and somewhere else. I forgot where the other thing was. People like it.
Not every author's in love with their movie, even if it makes them a lot of money.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yes, that is definitely Orson. It's not Scott. Is definitely not in love with this movie. But he's not the only one. Travis Walton from Fine Sky. He's not in love with his movie either. And there've been a couple of, matter of fact, come to think about it, that weren't real happy with their movies. Was Elron alive for Battlefield Earth?
He was not.
Yeah, because he wouldn't have been happy either. See, because he wouldn't have been happy either. He'd have been like, wait a minute. I've read enough of his stuff to know now that he might have had.
That's not what I wrote.
Yes, I'm thinking he might have wanted to make some changes in this movie. Christopher, real quick before we go.
We had our book Interview with the Terrorist. It was my story as an interrogator, and that one was it didn't go far yet, but it has been turned into a screenplay. And
that's good.
seeing that in comparison to the book, it's like, yeah, there's a fair bit of difference.
Well, they just I don't know what it is with producers and directors. They just have to get around with stuff. They just can't help themselves. And
Well, one
and
thing
sometimes
books,
maybe it's better.
science
Sometimes
fiction
it's,
books have an unlimited budget, and when it goes to the Hollywood or to wherever they're being produced, they definitely have a limited budget. So when they can do all these fancy things and this and the other stuff, it's unless you're somebody like Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt that can command that type of a budget, it's going to be a lot of cuts and trims and
true.
that type of stuff.
Lot of trim. But James, let me know if it comes out. I'd like to see it because I had seen one of the SEALs interrogator who was in Iraq. They made a movie about him, and it was pretty good. It was I hate to call him a SEAL. I mean, he was a SEAL, but he wasn't your typical SEAL because he didn't really do a lot of field work. They said he was one of the best interrogators in Afghanistan, and that's really what he did. That's what he
Different
did.
war.
I guess he had a knack for it.
It's a different war. I did 3.5 in Iraq, but no Afghanistan.
That's plenty enough. Yeah, that's plenty enough. Interrogation is not an easy job, and I know it's a stress. I know enough of y'all to know it's a very stressful job. Between doing this and people I've met, from other things I'm into, I've met enough interrogators what got me is how many of them were females. I was surprised.
We had
I was surprised.
three in our unit. We had three in our
I was
unit.
surprised.
Well, among other things,
careful use them, but
and remember, a female in an Arab culture is more powerful as an interrogator because of the ignominy alone.
it can be very. You got to know how to use that tool. It's a tool. If you know how to use it right, it's a very effective tool. If you don't, you screw it up.
I don't know about you, James, but every interrogator I worked with or knew is still dealing with it.
Well, we're gonna get out of here because poor John's head's gonna explode.
And I shared like some of these people we were hunting and dealing with. These are brutally sick animals.
Oh yes, they are. That's one day I'll bring y'all on and I'll bring y'all on in other shows and we'll talk about that aspect of it. We can come on and we can really. I mean, because I always ask people if they're ready to talk about that because some people are and some people aren't. And I had one lady and one gentleman on one day and we were talking. It was a good conversation, really, but somewhere about middle conversation, it folded back in on them and they couldn't take it anymore. She just broke down and started crying for the rest of the show. I said, well, look, we're going to stop here. We can always do this at another time. I said, I'll come back and clean this up. And he was literally, his hands were shaking halfway through the thing. So, and I can understand. I mean, we got into some serious stuff and they got into some stuff that I didn't think they were going to get into, dealing with, how the person comes in, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. What are they going through? How they're setting them up for it. What is that, Mark? Good cop, bad cop. That's not exactly how they play it, but it's a good interrogator is just a good interrogator. That's all I can say.
The legalese you have to deal with too was just brutal because after that 2005 Detainee Treatment Act that Russ Feingold and John McCain passed, that tied our hands like no
major. Yeah. Somebody else told me that too.
That job.
I know Marissa said that
Arabic, you could not actually use it. You were by law, you had to use a linguist because everything is recorded. They had to hear the interrogator ask the question in English. And
so they knew what you were saying.
The observers didn't speak it. They had to hear what you physically said all the time like that. And signing off, right? I mean, my interrogation signed off by NCOIC, expected, OIC, expected. But then I had to have it signed off by a JAG and then signed off by a behavioral psychologist, for going through the types of.
Why even bother interrogating anybody when they're going to tie your hands like that? Some things I just don't understand. But I know we got to get out of here. But James, Bob, Bill, thanks for hanging out. Oh, wow, Bob. Who the hell's Bob? Oh, that's Bob.
Who's Bob?
That's Bob right there.
That's
Bob right there. See Bob behind me? That's Bob. Bob, he keeps an eye on.
He's always looking over your shoulder.
Jimmy, come to DragonCon. You can meet Bill. I'll introduce you. Bill's a great guy. He's a lot of fun. Yes, we've talked many things.
I talk to people all the time there. Come to DragonCon.
It's a lot of fun to chat.
Easy to find him on the schedule.
Yeah, he's like I said, he's all over. Come on down. I'll introduce him. If you want to meet John, I'll introduce you to John. John's though he's cranky though. He don't like just meeting anybody. You gotta have some money if you're gonna talk to John. He's like, he's got $1 million. He's not interested, people.
He's got a booth.
You can find him when you get the damn biggest booth in the place.
That's what I should do sometime. I should go to try and get a booth there and set it up so I can meet with people, and have all this stuff.
Yeah, John, what y'all, they do a double booth. And
Yeah.
it's a nice setup they got there. Usually you got what's his name, Turley over there with his ugly self. I mean, not Turley. Who is it they got over there? Anyway, they got the big guy.
We'll put Joe up there every
there.
now and then. We'll have him on the table.
Yes, I always have a good time when I go out. I meet a lot of people. Last 2 times I went, I was doing interviews with the whatchamacallit people. The what do you call them? The cosplay people. I end up getting interviewed myself, so that was kind of weird. But on that note, we got to get out of here. I want to thank you again, Bill, and thank you again, James. I have a great anything. If you get anything new, it's right there. If you send it, it'll go right there behind me. It'll sit up there probably for a year before I give it away. So it's a good place for it. Guys and girls, the chat will be starting in a few minutes. I would imagine Jay will get there before I do because I got to go take care of a couple things before I switch shows. So stay tuned for the chat that's coming up. Don't ask people. Chat is nothing like this show. This is a very respectful, very well done show, well behaved. The chat is just a bunch of idiots talking. I'll see y'all in a while. Bye,
and happy Memorial Weekend, everybody, and very nice to see you again, Bill. And thank you very much, James.
Thank you all who served.
Y'all,
You guys, we'll see you later.
Hug somebody who served. Yes.